Hello again, Christian Brady, GIS intern. I'm back to introduce our next presenter. Here to tell us about the pursuit of happiness in Happy Canyon Creek is Cherry Creek Watershed Manager, Mr. Jim Watt.
All right, thanks everyone. Before I get going, I want to share a quick story. I was preparing for this presentation the other day at home, and my kids asked me what I'm doing, and so I share with them, I'm trying to prepare. I'm be giving a speech to like 500 people, so a little nervous about it. And so my son gave me these very encouraging words. Dang, Dad, 500 people, if you mess up, you're basically donezo. So, yeah. So I'm pretty sure I need to get with Laura and figure out like this whole talking with kids thing. So anyways, happy to be here today to present our Happy Canyon Creek project upstream I-25. This is a project that we recently completed construction on. As you can see by the star on the location here, we are in the southern part of the metro area. Again, the star highlights the location of the project. Happy Canyon Creek is a really busy watershed. We've got 10 projects that are in some phase of closed down or start up that represent improvements to nearly 10 miles of channel and almost $80 million of investment. So lots going on here. Again, the star represents the location of the project. It's just to the west of I-25 as you're driving south out of town. This project was originally requested by Douglas County and started via an IGA with them in 2013. Due to various reasons, kind of heavy design for the project didn't get going until 2020, and then we just finished up construction in 2023, so about 10 years in the making. The project improved just over 3,000 linear feet of channel at a construction cost of just slightly over $3 million. So that works out to be about $1,000 for every linear foot of channel that we improved. A few years ago, that would have been a really expensive project, but sadly these days it represents a rather cost-effective project. So the project sponsors and funding agencies was Douglas County, Lone Tree, CDOT, the Cherry Creek Basin Water Quality Authority, and the district. Mueller Engineering led the design effort, while Naranjo led the construction. And there's a lot of other specialties and firms that supported the effort along the way. I think my goal here today is really just to kind of tell the story of the project, but more importantly, kind of celebrate the project team and our accomplishments. We've definitely had a big contribution to kind of push this through the design phase and do a decent job at value engineering the project to get to a kind of a solution that was unique but also affordable. Definitely want to thank ERO for their wisdom and their guidance through the 404 permitting process. Mueller for helping us out with the Clomer application. It's always a challenge. And definitely very thankful for the guys at CDOT for helping us through the CDOT access permit. It turns out they don't allow just anyone to work next to an interstate, so glad that they let us in there. And then finally to Naranjo for what was a rather smooth construction phase. So why the project? Basically erosion. We had a lot of erosion in this area due to kind of some development in the upper parts of the Happy Canyon Creek watershed and the Castle Pines area. And as you can see, I even included the obligatory engineer scale of erosion. We're almost at 3 engineers tall of erosion here. The image on the right there, I think, does a good job of showing you kind of that historic floodplain through there. You can see how that erosion is cut through that historic floodplain. And when that's happening, it's taking those daily flows lower and lower, taking the groundwater with it, which eventually leads to the die-off of the vegetation, which then spirals into more and more erosion. So kind of a brutal circle. On the left side, you can see the sheet pile, as well as some of the concrete slope paving that have been installed over the years to protect the interstate corridor. So kind of protecting transportation infrastructure in terms of kind of CDOT or the interstate, as well as Surrey Ridge Road were some of the primary drivers for the project. From a watershed perspective, there's a lot of sand and sediment that is kind of coming through this system. So here's kind of a before and after of the Happy Canyon Creek and Cherry Creek confluence area and some of the storms that happened last summer. From this area, we've removed almost 2,000 cubic yards of sand over the last couple of years. So there is a lot of sand getting flushed down from the upper parts of this watershed, which is starting to have an impact on regional trails, storm sewer outfalls, and also the Cherry Creek main stem. So just trying to lock it up in our channel in our project area was a project goal. So what to do? You got this degraded system, the erosion's kind of coming down lower and lower. So our solution is pretty simple. Something we probably presented on here before is, let's try to lift that channel back up, reconnect the floodplain to kind of the historic floodplain, and use drop structures and vegetation and whatnot to try to keep it there. So this slide shows just kind of the overall scale of the project, some of the project improvements, as well as the 100-year floodplain. So the design team really put a lot of care and kind of attention and of detail to kind of the placement of drop structures and the alignment of the low flow channel throughout the project, with really trying to preserve as much of the vegetation as we possibly could, which eventually in the long run ended up saving us a lot of money in the construction phase. So the attention to detail during design really matters. Our project built 14 drop structures that basically accounted for 35 feet of elevation control across the length of the project. In total, the valley slope from upstream to downstream is about 1.2%, whereas our low flow channel in between our riffles was designed to fluctuate anywhere from 0 to 0.3%. So really the drop structures control the majority of the drop in the project. So here's a before and after, kind of the central portion of our project. And this was probably one of the more expensive areas of the project as well, due to the amount of earthwork that was needed. On the right side of the image there, and this is also the west side, if you can see we're looking south, was basically we had to come in and take out a bunch of earthwork to allow us to have room to then shift the creek west away from the interstate, without we're taking the kind of the erosion potential with it. So we're moving the creek around, we're raising it up. How do we keep it there? These drop structures are approached to kind of stabilizing the creek. On the left side of the screen is some of the riffle structures that we built. We put in 7 riffle structures for this project. These structures are just loose, void-filled riprap that are placed in there, and they're meant to kind of control the creek in areas where maybe have less complicated erosion, less hydraulics kind of going on. Typically, these drop structures are on the height of a foot or less. On the right side of it is our boulder cascades. We built 6 of these structures. And so these structures are used for maybe an area that more elevation drop, or you have a little bit more complicated hydraulics going on. So you got this lattice work of kind of boulders that kind of provide the strength of the structure that are then filled in with void-filled riprap to really lock everything together. Typically, these structures are maybe on the order of 2 feet or less, so I'm still a relatively low drop height. So if you have even more complicated hydraulics, or you want more elevation drop, is when you start having to look into maybe your hardened drop structures. For the case of our project, we chose to go with a sculpted concrete drop structure that provided a 5-foot drop elevation. This drop structure largely spans the entire 100-year floodplain, which is a little bit different than the approach taken on the cascades and the riffles. Those structures typically are just spanning maybe the minor storm event or the bankful channel, if you will. Switching gears a little bit, really thankful to have a contractor be able to participate in the design process. Having Naranjo on board to help out with value engineering, understanding budget risk is really valuable. But one thing that was really valuable is we were approaching construction in 2022 when really the cost of everything in the world was just going crazy. So being able to pinpoint a realistic kind of budget for the project was really helpful. As you can see, costs of fuel, rock, and concrete were just going up and up, which are some of the main parts of our project. So here is what Happy Canyon Creek looks like in the middle of the summer. So not a whole lot of flow coming through this system, pretty manageable amount. Unfortunately, this is what the channel looked like for what was the month of May last summer. In total, we had 17 days of just weather delays, and really the rest of the month was spent just trying to recover from these flows events. So definitely a stressful time to be in the major drainage waste construction business. I have absolutely no idea what's going on in this photo, but I'm sure there's a joke in there somewhere. So my joke is that these guys are trying to determine whether or not the creek is half full or half empty. If you have a better joke, you can buy me a beer at happy hour. See what I did there? All right, so here's the re-veg plan. So there's kind of a plant by colors system, if you will. Our projects these days really rely on vegetation more and more to really kind of lock the floodplains in and to complement kind of the engineered structures. And so I can't say enough about how valuable it is to have kind of trained staff participate in the construction process, to be out into the field and to help our contractors with the proper timing and placement and installation of plant material. Our particular project was kind of approaching construction phase at the latter part of the summer and fall of 2023. And so we realized, that there was some of our materials that wasn't going to be successful if we planted it in. So just being flexible and putting that in this past spring is eventually going to save us kind of money and time and kind of headaches over the long run. So keeping that long-term perspective is important. The re-veg phase for this project is going to be the next 3 to 5 years. So here is just the install of some of the quarry mat blanking that we have got on our project. So we use this material kind of right after construction to basically stabilize the creek banks and provide a way to just kind of lock in this, the seed bank and give that seed kind of a chance to sprout. As you can see by those wooden stakes that are kind of poking up in the ground there, there's going to be crews that come in on this day, they're going to hammer each and every one of those stakes in the ground. So a very labor-intensive and costly effort. But I don't think I've ever had a drainage way project where we didn't use this material. So kind of a must-have for drainage projects. And then finally, I just wanted to kind of revisit the sculpted concrete drop structure. On the left side of the screen there, you see some of the features that kind of got sculpted into the drop structure. And for me, this is really something to just celebrate kind of the craftsmanship and creativity of the concrete crews from Naranjo. And I think it also really shows off and builds off of kind of the craftsmanship of the rest of the team that participated in this project. So really great to see them kind of put this into this kind of extra effort into the work. You got Andrew from the city of Lone Tree there kind of looking rather cool, kind of taking in the sights and sounds of Happy Canyon Creek. The mastodon skulls kind of poking up through the concrete. I think that guy is well aware of some of the issues that Drew spoke about early in the day with the climate control or climate issues. And then I think my favorite, though, is what I think is the angry little iguana that is just wondering how the hell he ended up in Colorado. So, anyways, I just want to again take this opportunity to thank our project team for their dedication to this project. And thank them for their dedication to the sponsors and to the district. A really great project, and I think it deserves to be celebrated. Hopefully y'all in this room will take a moment to really recognize on your next achievements, your next project, kind of that next win for you. So with that, thank you.